Welcome back to From Portugal with Love. I'm your host, Lauren Covis. Today, I am so excited to sit down with Tony Gonçalves. He is such an accomplished man, okay? First of all, the founder of Everos Group, a global media executive. He's a mentor and a storyteller. He has this podcast called Heart and Hustle of the Portuguese. It is amazing. All the things he does while staying completely rooted in his Portuguese roots. Tony's work life is an intersection of culture, business, and identity, and that is why I'm so excited for this conversation today. And now let's welcome Tony Gonçalves. Thank you so much, Tony Gonçalves, for joining us here on From Portugal with Love.
Good to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate you.
For the audience listening today, I'd love to share a little bit about you first off. And let's start with your roots. Obviously, we know you're Portuguese, but what did growing up in your household look like? Like, was it traditional old school Portuguese, or, how would you translate or explain your childhood growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it is as deeply rooted as can be in tradition. I mean, we came here in 1977. I was 4 years old. We integrated into a Portuguese community, all the customs, all of the food. It was all Portuguese all the time. And I got to tell you, like, it still is very much that. I mean, we've evolved, but we're still very deeply rooted.
And do you feel that when you came over so young, like I'm first generation born here, but my parents, they needed to immerse themselves in those types of communities to be able, I feel, to get their feet on the ground and go and really feel confident coming to a new country and starting. I know, like, when I hear my mom tell me stories, like my grandmother was a seamstress and they worked in a factory, and it was all the immigrant women, Italian, Irish, Portuguese, that all came together. But you built a community, and when they would have lunch, it was so funny. She would explain, like, everyone's lunchbox looked the same, and all the Portuguese ladies sat together, all the Italian ladies sat together. And I feel like when you're that young, do you remember your childhood in Portugal versus your childhood here? Do you remember coming over?
I have some very vivid memories of the first, almost 4 years of my life. But it's amazing. They're either vivid or they're not. Like, I don't have sort of in between memories, but I remember running around our village as a little boy. I do remember, the big sort of pot over the fireplace, which is where all the meals were cooked. I mean, everything was cooked in that thing. It was this big cast iron, almost like a witch's.
A cauldron.
Exactly. My mom and my dad tell me these stories, and they trigger memories. Like, we lived, we sort of lived we grew up in a really poor, very, very tiny town. And I was really, really tight with the neighbor, this woman, Aurora. And I would run away from home, and I wouldn't eat the food that my mom gave me because I said it wasn't good. I would run one way to Aurora's house, and my mom would run the other way. She'd hand her the bowl of food, the plate of food, and I'd eat it at Aurora's house. And she'd say, and I'd look at my mom and I'd be like, now this is food. This is good food. Like, why don't you cook like this? And I was like, I was 2-3 years old. So, like, I have those memories, and they ignite, like, when I get back there, and we get back there often.
Yeah, I was to say, you just came back, right?
Yeah, I'm back and forth all the time. We're now empty nesters, and so we try to spend a lot of time there as a couple, a lot. So we're there 6 weeks in the fall. I go back and forth for work. We're hopefully there for another 6 weeks in the winter. So yeah, I mean, we're doing the cross Atlantic ping pong right now.
I like that you said that it ignites something when you're there, because we brought our boys for the first time last year, and I would tell these stories about going there and in the summer for Easter break and seeing my grandmother, and I would explain, like, we have a freshwater pump for a well outside. And I'd explain the kitchen that's outside with, that's where we made the French fries, because and then like anything in the calderada, like everything outside, because then we would fry out there, and the garden. And my husband was so funny because when he walked in, he was like to the yard. He's like, I can only see what you've told me through a kid's eyes because everything was so big and
Yeah.
so like I remember being 9 and there was a huge pig on in my grandfather's workshop, just like a wooden board kind of, and the head was hanging over because they were drying him out because they were going to slaughter, break down for all the meat, and it was so visual for me. And I explained that. So when he walked in and he saw the well, and I was like, now you get, like I said, like the chorizo was hanging from the ceiling and drying. So it's funny that you say it because even now at my age, bringing my kids, the way I explained stories and described it was so visual and they get ignited when you're there.
Yeah, they really do. Look, you just ignited a memory. So we came in 1977. I was 4, and then the first time we went back was 5 years later. Like I was between 9 and 10. I wasn't even 10 years old, and it was during a winter, and that is where when they slaughter the pigs and when they make
Mm-hmm.
the sausage and the chorizo, and we for the first time, like I witnessed all of that. And I had only heard about it because it's sort of like systematic, right? Every year at a certain period
Yeah.
of time, they make the wine, and then a few months later they slaughter the pig. Um, and I witnessed the entire thing. And then they hung the slaughtered animal
Mm-hmm. Trip out.
in the kitchen, uh, because
Visual.
that's all they had, and that's actually where the fire was. And so, and it was the winter, and it was wet, and then they made the chorizo. They and then they hung the chorizo
Mm-hmm.
in the kitchen to dry out. And so that's like the first. That's like when I think about going back for the first time. That's what I remember. And what's crazy is like there's nothing more traditional than that.
No. And I I think it gives us such, or gives me such an appreciation of food,
Yeah,
and how the labor and the love that goes into that. Because now, like living in America and like the way for my business and everything, the way food is looked at, it's so funny because there is this high level standard sometimes. And if you really, really rip back the layers of the onion, it really comes back to basic farming and
basics.
the way you cooked at home. You didn't have any waste. You used the whole animal, and you learned about where your food came from. And I think that it's funny how it evolved, but it's really so deep rooted in that.
Yeah,
And I think that with now our culture now, like, look, I'm in my 40s. The youth of the Portuguese kids that are being born here, they don't know that stuff anymore. It gets lost. And that's one of the reasons, like, why I wrote the book, why I love Heart and Hustle of Portugal. You are keeping things alive and bringing the education to the new generation so that we don't lose that, because the grandmas aren't coming over anymore on the boat. If they're going there, they're going there to stay and go out.
yeah,
So I think that when I ask people about Portuguese people, the one thing they say is that we are incredibly hardworking. And I think that that is something I see completely with you and from your business model. And I want to know the culture, that upbringing, that whole feeling of it. Do you think that has helped you create your success, your work ethic, and where you are now with? I mean, you've had your hands in a lot of different things.
yeah. Look, I'm getting the chills actually, thinking about how to respond to that. Look, we came here with nothing. I mean, my dad came and tested the waters in December of '76, and he walked a half hour to go work at a car wash to make like $2.
Yeah.
Um, and he tells a story of, this one day where he walked back and forth twice because it was snowing and there were no cars to wash, and he literally made like $1.25, and he was like in the cold, in the snow, like not used to it, and he's like, I'm not coming here. Like that was like the stick that broke the camel's back. And he left, and he ultimately decided to come back. And so whenever anybody asks me to sort of like give a background or sort of tell my story, the first thing I say is I'm an immigrant, period. And that's where my work ethic comes from, because we had no choice. Like, we had to grind it out. And the most vivid sort of, I guess, memory or example I can give is the bank was open late on Thursday, and I couldn't wait for my father to come home. He would come home in his construction clothes, he'd change his shoes, and I was the translator. So I would go with him on Thursday. And I got a glimpse of how things operated. And we lived paycheck to paycheck. And I think deep down inside, I saw what he did and the sacrifices that he and my mom made.
Mhm.
And I said, that's not me. Like, they did that for a reason, and therefore I will not be going to the bank every Thursday. And I will take advantage of every opportunity that's given to me so that that doesn't happen, but also to ensure that that wasn't in vain.
Right. It wasn't for nothing. What you
Right.
said, my mom did that for my grandmother. She was the translator, or like with anything, and my mom's the oldest of three. But yeah, she got to see right up front. I mean, what it was to come here with nothing. So
Yeah. And like, not speaking English. And, I do think the country and the people were a little kinder and open back
Mhm.
then. And like,
Well,
you
because
did.
so many people were in that boat
Yeah, exactly,
from all
exactly.
over.
But it was the community. And like, we still talk about the Portuguese woman that worked at the phone company. Like, oh yeah, that's the Portuguese woman that worked at the phone company. She helped me a lot. Like, I'll
Oh,
hear that from my parents. Like,
my mom, my mom, my dad, their relationships that they have with people, and they're like, and they always joke because they have grandkids now who are all tech savvy and all this, and they're like, we used to walk and sit on the stoop and play, and then that's where we went over to Tony's house over here, and we'd have lunch, and then we'd come back. But they like built real relationships where these
yeah,
families depended on each other, and we'd watch pictures and see things from like the home videos that my dad would eventually later in our life he uploaded, and he goes, "Oh no, those were our neighbors. They were over every Sunday for coffee, and you built those relationships, and that became family for you because you supported each other and you knew what you guys went through."
100%. I mean, to this day, some of my parents' best friends are,
Yeah.
from that situation, right? Um,
So you've led, I feel like, massive change through your career. You've done, I was like looking and really getting details, like this wave of things from, it was HBO Max during the pandemic.
yeah,
And I think that was when I was reading about that, I found that like very interesting because that experience must have taught you something to take to the next task, to take to the next thing. Can you kind of touch about like some of these changes and in your career, how you've led to the next thing that you've wanted to do and ultimately your goal?
yeah. Look, I I'm a big believer in constant learning. Like, I have three principles: work hard, be curious, be kind. Like, that's
I
how
like
I
it.
operate. That's my operating system. And you know, I have led through lots of change, lots of transformation. It's interesting. I've always like operated the smallest thing in the big thing, and so I've had to learn to treat even the smallest thing as the most important thing in the world.
But those
Like,
little things get you to the big thing.
and that's where like HBO Max sort of happened. I was running actually in you know in retrospect, not even in retrospect. I think generally speaking, a fairly large platform. I was the CEO of a company that was driving, I don't know, $600 million of revenue,
Wow.
but we were inside of AT&T. And for inside of AT&T, I mean, I had 3 minutes at ops reviews to go over my rounding error of a business, right? And so in that context, it was small, but for me, it was huge. And so back to your point of like the little things, because I was doing that and because I treated everything that I did as gold, right, as the
Yeah.
largest thing, I became the fixer. And so like when the HBO Max opportunity came about, I was the first call And that was huge. And so I took all of the learnings from, lots and lots of challenging situations, business transformations, personal relationships, um, and like that was the moment. But I will tell you, Lauren, we launched that thing on May 27th, 2020, and the day we launched, I didn't know what to do with myself. Like literally, I sat in a room just not too far from here, and I was like, all right, like there's no readiness meetings,
Right.
there's no budget debates, there's no marketing plan like, what do I do? And I realized that moment that like my mission accomplished as a leader, like I set up the team and a system to operate without me.
That's a
And I
huge thing,
was
though. Like
huge.
that's the pivotal of being in charge. Having that ship
Yeah.
run without.
And quite honestly, like we had a new CEO, it was COVID, like I I thought I was out of a job. And I was actually quite comfortable with it because that was sort of the plan. And quite frankly, I think that should be the ambition of every leader, is
Oh,
to be able to have a system and a process and some humans,
yes.
good humans,
Good
that
humans
can
are hard to
operate
find
without
right
you.
now, but
Very hard to find. They've always been hard to find.
I
So
know.
anyway, I
But
don't know if that answered your question, but
no, it did. I guess because right now I feel like what you do is not very corporate life, and where you were was very corporate life. So, you wanted to build something, step out on your own, I feel like is where everything led you to be. So I guess that's how do you feel about that? Like, where do you want to take the next direction? Because I want to talk about Heart and Hustle and Everest Group, but like, what makes you get out of that corporate systematic job to worry and do what you want?
yeah. So look, it was a very deliberate decision for me. And quite honestly, like I think the decision was sort of made for me, and then I made a deliberate decision to like not look back. And
To follow
so
through.
I had been through, I've led and participated in four huge corporate mergers. Um, and those things are effing hard. Like they weigh
Can't
on
even
you.
imagine.
They weigh on you. They weigh on you as a human being. They weigh on you as a leader. They weigh on you as a professional. Um, the HBO Max launch in like the heat of COVID was brutal, but there was a purpose that like I think the team felt. Um, and then I thought I was out of a job, but I ended up being asked to run all of revenue for Warner Media a few months later. So back to like the
Yeah.
steps, right? Um, and my first project was to let go of 25% of my staff during COVID. Like, and I was exhausted. And so then when the last merger was announced, I was like, I've done this. I'm not doing it again. Um, this is just too hard. I can't find purpose in it anymore.
It's taxing, it's pulling on you
And
emotionally too.
I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And I didn't know what to do. And so, but I knew it wasn't going to be that. And I knew that it was time for me to look at this industry as a shareholder and a consumer so that I can have a really objective point of view, which is how I look at it now. And that, if there's any time to sort of hit a reset button, it would be then. But I had no clue what would be next. And I was a guy who had to have everything planned and written down. I have a lot of ADD, and so I need a lot of structure. Um, and like for the first time in my life, I was like, I'm just going to let Jesus take the wheel.
All right, Carrie, you get him. No, I mean, I I'm a big believer. You are, believe me, because I have that internal struggle sometimes where like I keep chipping away, I keep working hard, I put everything into it, and then you feel incomplete. And then you're looking at the bigger picture. But I do believe really deep down in my soul that we are where we're supposed to be at the point in time. And every little decision like that, the movie Sliding Doors, you make the right when you leave your
Yeah,
house or a left, is going to put you where you're supposed to be. And if, put to a higher power or to just sometimes throwing your hand, throw the towel in, take a step back. Maybe that gives you different perception, different view. And I feel like you wouldn't be where you are now if you hadn't gone through those things, good or bad.
100%.
And, I feel like that also you leave with compassion too. That's huge. It's hard for people in the corporate world to show vulnerability and compassion because it becomes so systematic for them. And I really feel that, like, even what you just said shows that character trait in you. And I think that's why when I listen and watch your stuff, and especially your podcast, you connect with people because you genuinely care. And
Yeah, I do care.
yeah,
And I think in the conversations that I have, I'm also curious. Like, I care about what they have to say. I record what they have to say because I believe that, without constant progress and sort of we go stale
yeah.
as individuals. But yeah, look, vulnerability in leadership is one of the most undervalued trait. Transparency in leadership is one of the most undervalued trait. I mean, look, we unfortunately had to let go of 500 people during that period of time, 500 human beings. I was brand new. That team had every reason to hate me, the ones that stayed
Right.
behind. We grew revenue 10% in a mature business, and our employee engagement scores went up 10 points. Like, people felt the purpose, they felt heard.
We built
And that,
camaraderie.
exactly. By the way, at a moment in time where you couldn't go have a cup of coffee with anybody.
Right.
And so, if there's like, to me, I feel like that was a Seinfeld sort of situation. Like, it was, I wish I had had 2 or 3 more years kind of in that vibe and in that zone. Um, but I left the corporate world, you know, in sort of the Seinfeld moment where lots of change, but as a leader, like, I had accomplished a whole lot, by the way, but I had learned a ton from these incredibly challenging experiences.
Now, do you feel like that helped fund the Everrose group?
Yeah, look, the Everose group, it's funny. Rosemary reminds me of this, my wife. I had started an LLC for shits and giggles, like, I don't even know how many years ago.
But you went in
And
with a point to try and solve a problem or to develop something.
so initially, no, like,
Oh,
I just started this, like, I started an LLC. It was like this dormant company called Evros, named after my wife and my daughter, Every Rose.
okay.
And we just kept deleting letters until the name was available. And now I have multiple Evros entities because the name is available. Um, but I had started that with no understanding of what that would be, and really it sat dormant for years. Um, and then when I left Warner and committed, that sort of corporate life was behind me, my wife was like, "Look, you have to go to Portugal and, like, just get inspired, go find yourself." We had bought a house, like, the construction was stagnant. I bought my childhood home as well in our little village, like, the
Wow.
construction was stagnant. And she's like, "Just go." And I went, and I started slowly building a new network. Um, and I got inspired, and I was like, "Look, Portugal in my business seems to be behind 2, 3, 4 years.
So much.
If I can help, Portuguese media companies or entities um, evolve a little quicker, get ahead of the curve, there might be something here." So I started consulting for one of the largest media companies in Portugal, advising them. Again, I slowly nurtured the network. And then one day it hit. I said, "This is profession, purpose, and passion kind of colliding." And that's the mission.
There's nothing better than when you believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
that, your wife saying, go find yourself, but it's more of how do I find clarity in what I want? And I do agree that Portugal sometimes is a little behind,
Whew.
just smidge. But I mean, it's having a moment right now.
Portugal está na moda.
Yeah, I said, it's having a real global moment, and the opportunities that it is bringing to not only other countries, but like when I do book signings and we're always talking, I start my little spiel off and I go, all right, raise your hand. Who's going to Portugal this year? Or who just got back? You know, who's dying to get educated about it? And I go, that's the reason I wrote my book is because
Yeah.
I feel like we need to give that info out and everybody. I mean, it's the biggest place that Americans and Canadians are buying property.
Yep.
Um, I love when people come back and they're like, I never knew it was so beautiful. And I'm like, I know, people don't. They think
Told
it's,
you.
yeah, I was like, "What- you're on a coastal country, the one of the biggest fishermen capitals of the world. It's just amazing
And
to me when I hear it.
we're finally not a province of Spain.
Oh, yes, that we're our own identity.
We have our own
Um,
identity. Look, that was sort of the inspiration for the podcast. I was advising the media company, Grupo Empresa, that owns the newspaper Expresso,
yeah,
storied
you're huge.
newspaper organization, and Seek, the first private broadcasters in Portugal. And I was like, guys, like, you make a lot of content, and there are a lot of non-Portuguese that are interested in what you have to say. And so you have to do stuff in English. Like, you have to print, and it took them a little while. And then one day they showed up and they were like, we're thinking of maybe doing a podcast in English. I'm like, that's a great idea. Um,
Were you
you know,
surprised if they're never really realizing the transition to like an American market until you kind of went over and talked to them?
No, because the CEO, Francisco Pedro Balsemão, he's young, he's globally minded. He understands,
Okay.
um, uh, but it's a small country, and you don't have resources for everything.
No, and I think
And
sometimes they're, that's one of the reasons I do love it. It is old world a little.
yeah, yeah, very old world. And so in the end, I think it's a country where it's a business culture where it takes a little while to sort of get there.
Hmm.
Um, and then when they got there, what I was surprised is when they asked me to host the podcast. I was like, no, no, no. I'll find you a host. I'll produce. We'll do 5, episodes, and we'll figure it out. And they were like, well, we don't. I mean, why don't you just do it? I'm like, well, I'm not a podcast host, and I need producers, and I need, my mind. I come from a world where there's a lot of support,
Professional.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's where it was born. It was born to try to speak to the non-Portuguese that are in Portugal, or the non-Portuguese that are interested in Portugal, but where we're highlighting really special individuals that represent our culture and our hustle.
I love nothing more than when I turn it on and I'm watching and I'm like, I didn't know they knew they're Portuguese. Like, and it's so funny because it's like, I don't know, I always learn beyond like so much. But I think that your guests, you don't limit yourself. You have such a wide umbrella of people that you've had and conversations with
Yeah,
that all different views of life and the world and what they want to do or but one thing they all are very proud. They're very, they realize that it's part of who you are. And it's so funny. I always say, my husband always jokes, he says, you're such a proud pork chop.
yes, I am.
And I'm like, yes, I am. I really am. I find where I came from and all that. And I think you deliver that message in the heart and the hustle.
Thank you so
No,
much. That
I
means a
really,
lot.
really do. Who was your most surprising guest you've ever had that really like was like, wow, I'm really impressed. I didn't realize this. You taught me something.
Like you said, we've had some really interesting people. I mean, we had the former ambassador of the United States to Portugal, Randy Charles Levine. We've had probably the most successful Portuguese actor on the face of this planet, Joaquim de Almeida. But then we had, a young lady, Lindy Reed, who started a bagel shop in Lisbon,
Right?
right? And so it's hard to pinpoint 1 or 2 conversations, but early on, and I was so grateful. Mariana Van Zeller, who's an
Amazing.
investigative journalist, crazy woman.
Did you? I didn't know until I watched some. It was like something about her, and that she was in. New York, and the reason like she got the break that she did was because she could speak fluent Portuguese
Yeah,
and went out on 9/11, and that's how I was like, and I'm watching like, oh my god, first of all, she looks exactly the same. She doesn't change. She ages so well, but it was so impressive. But I feel like that was her calling, like
it was her, and that's where, like, I wouldn't say it was a surprising moment, but it's sort of one of those conversations that really stayed with me. She grew up in Cascais in Lisbon,
mm,
but she wanted to go to journalism school in Columbia. They said no twice. She flew to New York, like knocked on the door of the dean, had a
persistence.
conversation, like unbelievable. And look, arguably, she didn't need to do that, right? And then, yeah, she was the only person on the ground that Seek Noticias, which had just launched,
Wow.
knew because she interned there. And like as I can
Right
almost like
place, right time.
right place, right time. I can almost see her getting that call. Like she talks about going to like the main press pool and like all of these people that she looked up to being around her, and she was one of them. Like that's really special, and like to be able to extract that story and like have that conversation. You just can't. I can't put words to it or value.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, what you're doing, especially with Heart and Hustle, is you are storytelling and you're helping get that story of those people out, whether it's business, media, or culture. Like, I think that's why they wanted you to be the host because you have an actual connection and care and passion. So, like, when you were like, I didn't want to do it, I mean, I couldn't imagine anyone else doing it because you are such a good storyteller. You really do get to those people, which sometimes we're kind of we get in our own way,
Oof,
you
oof.
know and it's nice
Yeah,
to have a conversation because you actually ask the right questions for people to be like, wait a minute, I actually did do that and I'm really proud of that, and you help that story come to life and bring light to them.
thank you. I mean, look, I just had another like that means so much to me. I just had another really interesting experience. Like I interviewed a comedian named André de Freitas, and we go into these things. I go into these things. You do this. You have to be prepared, right? Like
Yeah.
you owe it to the guest to be prepared. Do some homework, and I'm always very prepared. I always have about 50 questions too many because you never know, and then every once in a while I get lost in the script. I didn't look down at that script once. Like I thought I was going to go and have like a Mike Rita type conversation where I was going to laugh the entire, and it was so deep, and so like where his comedy came from, his ambition, and it was just two human beings having a conversation.
Yeah.
And the episode didn't do that well, which it's okay. Like algorithms and whatever, they're not all going to do well. But it stuck with me, and like we become friends. Like he's in New York. I feel like a mentor. Like we're collaborating on a couple of things. Like it's such an opportunity, and I'm so grateful. Really, I am so grateful for the platform.
And when you, like the way you said, I never looked down at my script, but just having a conversation, I feel that that's where the podcast world really started was let's have a conversation. It's like, I used to get in your car and drive and put the radio on and, talk radio or, but now with the podcast, the different platforms, I can find what I'm interested in and listen.
I call it's talk radio on demand.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Like you used to have to go, Stern is on at X time, and then you'd have to listen to Stern on at X time.
Yeah.
Now, like there's thousands of Sterns,
Yeah.
and you can find your lane, and you can find your lane whenever you're comfortable, like whenever it works for you.
Do you feel that Heart and Hustle is at its full capacity, or do you have a vision of, what you want to do next with it, or does it lead to another option for you?
Oh, Lauren, I'm a tortured soul. I have lots of ideas and zero capacity to execute them.
Join the club,
Um,
Tony.
here's what's crazy. Like this thing was supposed to be 5 test episodes to see if it worked. Um, we had our first episode December, I think it was December 7th last year. So we just celebrated 1 year. Got 50 freaking recordings.
That's awesome.
So it's like, so that's incredible. And we've seen the momentum, sort of the ebbs and flows of how this stuff works. Um, so now I feel like we've built a community. We have slightly over 100,000 unique listeners. The numbers vary from week to week.
Do you feel
We're
that
start.
it mirrors over there as well as over here with
No,
interest?
here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting. Look, I don't know if I believe the data, but it's the data. So I'm a data guy. I have to
Yeah.
believe the data.
Numbers don't
Nine,
lie, I was told.
90% of the listens are in Portugal. It's shocking. What
And
we
you
don't
speak and
know,
you translate it, or it's in English in Portugal?
no, it's in English. And what we don't know yet, which again, back to like, where does it go? Is if it's the expats and the Portuguese people. But like, I get private equity owners, I get, comments, and outreaches from ministers in government, and so it's sort of like, it's actors, the creative community, very much. It sort of very aligns with the guests that I tend to
Yeah.
have. So we built a bit of momentum. And so now it's like, okay, now what? So going into next year, so we've done a couple of things. So one, we launched a merch line. So I'm learning.
I love our hoodie. I will tell you that.
Thank you very much. There's some back there.
Yeah.
Um, and so we're figuring that out. And like, I get a lot of questions like, oh, you think you'll make a lot of money? I'm like, it's not really about the money. It's about extending the community. And quite frankly, like, you discount this stuff just a little bit, given that it's a no inventory platform and you really don't make any money. And so you lose. But that's actually not what it's about. It's about extending the community. So that's like the first thing we did to sort of leverage the momentum that we have. Um, the other thing we're going to do going into next year, is we're going to do like vertically focused seasons. So our fourth season is going to be fully focused on music,
Okay.
and musical artists. And I'm doing it in partnership with the International Portuguese Music Awards. Also a relationship that sort of spun out of me doing this. I was a presenter at the awards last year. I met the guys, they're amazing, and I think we can help each other. And so,
Isn't that what it's all
that's,
about?
that is what it's all about. And I think there's a book in this, but like, I don't want it to just be a book of profiles of human beings. I think those are beautiful, but I want this to sort of reflect something different. And so I'm on a mission to sort of figure what that is.
You'll find the common thread.
Yeah,
It will
yeah,
be it will be weaved. It's almost like taking the step back to see, but
yeah,
I really believe that with you,
yeah.
especially.
And so we'll see where it goes. I mean, it's one of the things I do, and so like, consumes my life. I do other stuff, and so, but I'm fully committed to it. It's interesting. Like, we also, when we thought about the name, like, sort of didn't put a lot of thought into it, because who knows? And somebody in Lisbon, an expat in Lisbon, was like, when I look at that logo and I read out the name, he's like, there's just something so annoyingly simply cool about it. And I'm like,
They're
yeah,
on the hustle.
it's pretty literate.
I think it's the best name.
And it's amazing. And so shit just happens, I guess.
Yeah. Now, I know you do a lot with the Tribeca in Lisboa. Like, how did that come? Did that because of these relationships?
So that was, almost everything I do, nearly all I do in Portugal, is rooted out of that initial consulting business that I started.
Okay.
And so I help people think about how to grow their businesses. And I have a friend at Tribeca, an old colleague, who came and asked for some advice over lunch. I went to Portugal, and I landed, and I sent them a text, and I was like, "Hey, dude, what do you think about maybe bringing the festival to Lisbon, like, as part of an international strategy? Like, let's do it." And so that's kind of how it happened. And I put people that I knew that could use this type of newness in the country
Yeah.
together. Tribeca, Grupo Empresa, my client, The city of Lisbon, Carlos Moedas, the mayor, is a very anchored on culture and on innovation, and that's how it came together.
No, I mean, well, hey, you're bringing more culture, more diversity. You're educating. There's a whole platform that this is bringing, as well as business. I mean, at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
and look, I really think if I think about when I landed and sort of sent that text, what was what was the root of that? Like, there's a business opportunity that my buddy asked me to sort of help him with, think about. Um, but I think at the core, it was this need for incredible talent, in Portugal to have a global stage, and like, you know, Whoopi Goldberg was there in our inaugural festival last year, um, and she had this moment with two Portuguese creatives, like a comedian and an artist, and um, they were career defining for these guys. Like, where else would they have that moment and that
opportunity, yeah,
opportunity,
like,
right? And so, like, a global stage
yeah,
is what for our talent is the mission. Which, interestingly enough, like, if you think about the podcast, it's kind of that,
yeah. It's a stage that
it's a
helps bring,
platform.
yeah, it's a platform that brings light to it. I
Yeah,
mean, personally, after you do the music, I think maybe you should do one on food. Just because, as chops will always tell you, one thing we'll have in
we're
common. We could
working
talk
on
about
something.
food.
Working on something there. So food and sports are sort of the other verticals. But there's also innovation. I mean, Portugal has created 12 unicorns, billion-dollar companies. That's not a very well-known fact. And so, where does that entrepreneurial spirit come from? We had Virgilio Bento from Sword Health, aka V, on our
Mm.
podcast, who built a company whose 99% of the revenue is outside of Portugal, and they never left. He's still headquartered in Portugal. So there's that angle as well. The problem is, I know what it takes to do 50 in a year, to do all these verticals. The good news is then there's runway, right?
Yeah.
To build on these verticals.
Oh no, and you're opening so many different doors. It is endless of what can come from it. But
Yeah.
my thing, the underlining for you is the community you're building.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this: when I decided to do the book, I really didn't know how I was going to go about it and what. I just knew that I wanted to put these stories down, and it was important to me because my family. If I sold one book or none, it was just to have this for my family. The community that has been opened up to me
Yeah.
through you, Portugali, and all these people, I should put out all these different people who just have been so welcoming. And, at the first, my own insecurities, I guess I want to say it is my own, I'm first generation. I'm an American. My Portuguese is, it's my first language, but now it's mixed. It's a little, and when I can't figure out the Portuguese word, maybe there's a little Spanish. If not, there's a lot of hands put into it, but I will deliver my point. I get questions. Can you do an interview all in Portuguese? I said, no, I speak like countryside Portuguese, like I posh things together. The community though that has been built and the youth that has been brought in to it, I find astounding. Like, I always
Yeah.
joke, I love the Portuguese kids.
Yeah.
I think they're hysterical.
The
I think,
OGs.
yeah, but you know what? They capitalize on all our fun humor that we grew up with.
Yeah.
So that's why it's nostalgic at the same time. But I think it's the biggest word for you that I when I associate your business and when I was reading about you before I even met you and our first podcast that you had me on your platform is community. I
Yeah.
really think that's the strongest word. And I think food does bring a lot of that together because that's my favorite job is I want to bring everyone back to the dinner table.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And it is the friends I've made, the people I can reach out to today and that reach out to me, the support, the relationships. I mean, our relationship. I love what you do. I love who you are. I love how you show up. I love how you're not core to the Portuguese and you're trying to, expand the awareness and grow the
Yeah.
awareness of who we are and what we do and how we eat. Um, and I learn a lot from you, and I learn a lot from all of my
Thank you.
guests. And so the community that I built is the community that we built, I think, in doing this is amazing. And you talk about educating the youth. It's kind of interesting. I go to the IPMAs and I see a lot of young Portuguese Luso descendants, if you
Mhm.
will, still exposed to Portuguese arts and culture. I bump into people that listen to my podcast, or like I get DMs on Instagram, and it's shocking to me. And then I step back and I'm like, and to your point, like educating, the next generation. One, it's kind of our job, right?
Agreed.
But two, like you ask yourself, why? And
I
the
don't
why
know. It
is
is.
because we
Yeah.
speak their language.
Yeah.
So we've adapted, right? And we've used our ability to adapt to bring young people back in to connect with their roots, because roots run deep.
They do. And I feel like you start the conversation, and like the way I view my business and things is I love nothing more, even good and bad times, bringing people together. And the one easy way to do that is by putting a good meal on the table.
Amen.
So, I love nothing more than actually when growing up as a kid, like we sat at the table for a long time. Like
Long time.
you really did. And it wasn't, the food was obviously what brought us, but then it was about the food, the conversation that happened, and this person, and people listened to each other. And I really try and instill that now. And I think with the youth and educating, like I try and use my platform. Yeah, it doesn't always have to be Portuguese, but it's so rooted in there that it naturally just shows up.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, you just taking me back to, I mean, the amount of people that we would fit into our little home growing up, on a holiday, on a weekend, like, I mean, I was just having this dialogue with my parents the other day when they were like, "Oh, so and so's coming to Christmas, and so so's coming to Christmas." And I'm like, "Where are you going to put these people?"
You'll
And
fit.
my mom said something really special. She was like, "We put more people in smaller spaces." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "You know what? Yeah, like we'll
My
figure it
dad
out.
always said
Some
it was
people can eat in
nothing
the couch."
fancy. My dad always said it was nothing fancy, but everyone was together.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think
yeah.
that's
And nothing's
important.
forever, so it's important to
I'm
capture
going
those
through that with my
moments.
kids right now, and my parents, and they're too cool for school right now, being in high school, and I'm like, nothing's forever, dude. Like you need to really be part and be present in a lot of these moments.
Tell your kids that people from the
100.
1900s,
I,
yeah, are pretty smart because
yeah.
they've lived through it. Like we've got lore, we've got stories to tell.
Yes. So on your podcast, we talked about bacalhau, and as I say, and I think it is the mascot of the Portuguese people. I want to know one dish or one meal that instantly brings you to Portugal that you get excited for.
Yeah. Well, there's the one I get excited for is a very, very simple dish, which is boiled potatoes, boiled bacalhau,
Cozido.
a boiled egg, yeah,
Yeah.
bacalhau cozido, a
Ah,
boiled egg, some greens,
cool.
uh, olive oil, vinegar, um,
Raw
you
garlic or
know,
no raw garlic?
raw garlic. I didn't like garlic growing up, but I did like onion, so my mom would do garlic, onion. Like completely brings me back and like gives me joy. Um, but growing up, the thing like my mom would make a very, very simple stew. And it was again potatoes, kale, because that's what they grew,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
beans, and pork meat.
Like a feijoada
Uh, it's
almost?
Goves batatas e feijões.
You-
Like that's what we would that's the name we would make it. And it's a very common thing like in the north, because that's like
Oh,
they
yeah.
grew potatoes, they grew kale, and then they loaded it with the extras of the pig, right? So pig feet, ears, and that's where you got the flavor. And I hated it growing up. Like, just wasn't my thing. And so that's like a dish that brings me back, but not a dish that I go, oh, like gives me joy.
I think I was the only 13-year-old that asked so my birthday's in October, and my mom always, what do you want for your birthday? And I was like, feijoada tramontana, like the red bean one, like it's my favorite. I'm the only one that you think you walk into a 13-year-old's house and I'm salting pig parts on a freaking counter because
See, I don't, it's funny, like, we just released a video today of like a couple of clips of that section of my podcast, and it's and I was having a conversation with the John Stewart of Portugal, and
okay,
he was talking about arroz de cabidela, which is
I
it's
love that.
see, I can't, I don't roll with blood in my food, like can't do it. Uh, and so, and then we
You
talk
can
like,
use
and then
balsamic. There's a substitute.
uh, I'll do that. Rice, chicken, all of the chicken extras, and yeah, I just can't roll with the blood. And so, like that, cozido a portuguesa, like not really my thing.
Okay.
Um, and so that's where I become untraditional.
I think that those items are probably my most warming heart. I mean,
I
I could tell
bet.
you my mother would go to Newark. They had the chicken guy. She would leave the chicken
Yeah.
in the bag and the little coffee cup with the white lid. And she would ask them, "Can I have another bag?" So, she put it in the cup holder at the car, get home. And I knew when I saw that, I was like, yes, we're getting chicken and rice. And like, we're chicken with well, especially with the hearts. And it's so funny because my kids love that because she'll make it for them. Um, but I always joke that my big fat Greek wedding, I was my big fat Portuguese, and I was the little girl in first grade with the thermos because I got the leftovers. But it was always those kinds of traditional.
Party, traditional.
Oh yeah, it was like 7 years old eating joints. I had bread on the side. I was like, I'm sitting there. I don't know if you like Sebastian Maniscalco, but I forget the comedian never talk about childhood and those kinds of things that we eat and we went through.
Yeah. I was the
Um,
kid with the shitty peanut butter and jelly sandwich because, like, all of my friends had the thick peanut butter, the thick jelly, and like
you're just
it was like butter on a toast. Like it was. um, but anyway,
I want to I always finish with a quick fire if you don't mind, and it's always
yeah,
this or that. So since you go back so much to Portugal, are you biased, Lisbon or Porto?
I'm a north guy.
Okay.
I go north. I mean, we're deep. We're even 2 hours north of Porto.
Okay.
But I think the essence of Portugal is outside of Lisbon's beautiful. It's a beautiful
Gorgeous.
capital. I feel very at home there.
It changed so much. I mean,
It
it's
did.
unbelievable.
It did. But you want the essence, you go north and or inland.
Inland, yeah. So where my grandparents, my mom, and my dad, they're around 40 minutes south of Porto. So Aveiro in Mortosa. Okay. Would you, one word that you say describes Portugal today in its moment?
Oh, magic. I mean, it's such to see the country flourish and finally be seen. I mean, people don't really understand the arc of the story of our country. I mean, we're in a really, the monarchy went down in the early 1900s.
Mm.
The country struggled, and then, it fell under a dictator for a long time and became extremely poor and like underdeveloped. And in the 1974, there was a peaceful revolution with flowers. And
It's taken time to come back from that.
it wasn't until the 80s where it sort of started. There was no outside influence, which
Yeah.
is really bad. And so it's just magical to see the country flourish and be seen, and to see our gastronomy like on the top lists of the world, right? See the Pastel de Belém like named the best dessert in the world. Like
I know. I
it's a
just saw
beautiful
that.
thing. Yeah,
I
beautiful thing.
I said in Jersey, I'm trying to bring pastel de nata, like an ice cream form with gelato, do like vanilla custard. I'm like, I don't think people understand. It's like creme brulee in a puff pastry, delicious buttery shell. Like,
Joey Bat says it's the creme brulee meets the croissant. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah, shout out to Joey Bats, another one that's driving our culture forward.
yeah. My last one, which is always controversial: Superbox or Sags?
I'm a Superbot guy, and they have to be minis.
Minis. I was gonna say, do you do
Yeah,
the minis?
Superbot minis. Actually, I was putting some stuff away. The kids are coming home this weekend, and we have Christmas Eve
Yeah.
here, and I went to put some stuff away in the fridge. Actually, Agua de Pedras
Mhm.
in the fridge, and I look and I'm like, we're low on Superbot minis.
You
I've
gotta
got to
go to
go
shopping.
track them down.
What's on your Christmas Eve table? What's the main?
Very traditional. It's boiled octopus and boiled bacalhau. Um, and for the kids that don't vibe with it, there's like a lasagna
So we do a lasagna too for
because
the
that's very
kids.
Portuguese.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, like I'm out literally looking at the chair I will be sitting on, and I'm salivating at the at the bacalhau dish that I will inevitably eat too much of.
I texted my mom this morning and I said, don't forget to pull the postres out for me because I need to thaw them so that I can, so we can sew. Like, and she's like, I'm on it. And I'm like, 'cause
Are
I
you
know.
the thick like you personally? Do you like the
Yes,
thick
I like the
pasta or
thicker
do you like
ones.
the
No, I like the thicker ones. I'll soak them. So we'll start. I mean, the appetizers are ridiculous.
yeah?
We'll do the calamari, the seafood salad. I'll usually do clams, bollos de bacalhau, and then I'll sit down and I'll do octopus, like com patata muro with the
Yeah, yeah.
peppers and the potatoes. I'll do bacalhau com chá, and then I always do tomato rice and fried flounder for the ones who are like not going to eat the bacalhau. Um,
Tomato rice with shrimp is another one. I like my favorite.
oh yeah.
Oh God,
So
yeah,
we'll do that, and then we'll take a break. We'll do gifts, and then the obscene amount of desserts will come.
yeah.
And we'll do. My mom does the little fried and the pumpkin fritters. I do rebanadas, and then there's rice pudding. There's a lotria. There's
How
nothing
about?
short of food.
I mean, rebanadas. Like,
It's one of my
come on.
favorites.
And I was telling my mom she was going through her list of like all the stuff that she's making. She's like, "What about empanadas? Like, do you think I should make as many as I normally make?" I'm like, "Those things last."
Oh,
I'm
next
like,
morning, room temp for breakfast with your coffee.
yeah. I mean, legit.
I
My
I soak mine
mother-in-law
half
used
milk,
to
half port wine.
half milk, half port wine. My mother-in-law used to make these sonhos. They're like
Yeah,
just a very simple grandma's donuts, as we used to
yeah.
call
My mom
them.
puts pumpkin in them.
Oh, beautiful
So
thing.
that with nutmeg, and then she'll fry them. And like where we're from, papas, like the pumpkin custard almost, so cheese pumpkin, and we put rice in them. So those kinds of things are like, I'm like, don't worry, you can make enough because tomorrow morning and then the next day, like
Yeah,
the week of Christmas, we're home. Like it's nice, it's cozy, you want all that
yeah,
food.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Tony. I really, really appreciate you taking the time and the conversation. Can you tell my listeners and anyone who follows us where they can find you?
Yeah, so Heart Hustle PT on Instagram, hearthustlept.com online. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So Tony Gonçalves on LinkedIn. You can sort of get a broader view of my world and what I do on LinkedIn. Um, and, Spotify, all of the
Yeah.
platforms where you can get a podcast, you can listen to our podcast. We appreciate every listener, whether it's for 10 minutes or a full hour. I think our conversations and the stories that we help people tell are really incredible and inspiring. And so appreciate every listener.
Yeah. No, well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I wish you and your family like the best holidays. And
Same
New
to you.
Year 2026, we're going to kill it.
We're going to kill it. We're going to kill it. We got to find ways to collab, Lauren Kovas.
Let's go. I think we should do a trip in Portugal. We'll do the food and the
I have an
going
idea.
around.
I have an idea.
Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. This has been From Portugal with Love, and I'm your host, Lauren Kovas. This podcast is produced by Curious Monkey Entertainment. Don't forget to subscribe. You can find me online on all your social media channels at Chef Lauren Kovas. Until next time, please always remember to savor the moment.